And welcome to the official halfway point of the LPL for 2019 and to the spring split of that. It is week 6, day number 1, and we once again find ourselves in Hangzhou Arena, LGD's home turf again, as WE this time have to make the trip over to them. And of course, with LGD being in such an interesting position after the change up of leadership, after the change from PYL to RD, Condi jumping into the jungle, the voice of reason for LGD has grown. The fans have come out in miles and miles of caliber, which is not English, but I can tell you it is going to get me excited a little bit later on. Having a little look at LGD, and there's been a big story here in this roster as they prepare for their games. It has been about Condi, but it's also been about Kramer, and a little bit about Lies as well, as he interchanged with Varus in the top side of the map. Now for LGD, remember, there is one moment that defines them as a team. We'll talk about that a little bit later. We move on to WE as they come into the arena. And the leadership of Wei Xiao. You know what? Fair enough. I mean, that's how you prepare for a game. That's pretty straightforward for WE anyway. Leadership of Wei Xiao has been a big thing, and welcome back to the halfway point. My name's Jake Osipenko. This is Brento Raz Mohammed, and thank you for dealing with that.
You were not prepared for the sleeping aspect of that one.
That totally cooked me off guard.
We have a lot of them. There are a few times, you know, you catch people eating Doritos in particular.
Oh yeah.
And then that one just gets me hungry.
That's some solid brand awareness. But again, I said before a couple of times, it is the halfway point of the LPL, and it's good to be here because we learn a couple of things about the LPL, and teams are starting to define themselves in the standings.
Yeah, I just wanted to see some teams break out of the pack, and that's what we're finally getting. For me, it was TOP when they finally took down JDG, and then on top of that, the RNG series, defining moment for them. Now they're in second place. I
think RNG as well, bit of a surprise that they're down there, but remember before Chinese New Year, the whole thing about bringing in Wink, but we'll get past that anyway. At the moment, Invictus Gaming dropping down to 2 games, that's probably the biggest surprise out of them all.
Yeah, I'd say IG, the way they did it was earlier on. It's tough to see them going that route. On top of that, Suning, not looking good either.
No.
They're on a 3-series losing streak. We'll see them later on today, as you see in the match. For me, it's definitely the not so much match of the week, but in your heart, you know it's match of the week.
You like it's match of the week,
yes.
Even if it's not match of the week. IG and Suning, this is going to be a defining moment for both of them as well, considering that these are meant to be our top 3 teams, or top 2 of the top 3.
Yeah, they should be our championship caliber teams, world champions, and then for Suning, the team that built a super team to get to that point, and they've both been having some struggling moments.
It seems like 2 sides of the scale right now. You have IG and Suning coming up later, which should be up here, and then you have LGD and WE who are just trying to make a run to get into that top 8 at the moment. And LGD, they're a team that have made big changes, but we'll talk about that a little bit later, Raz, because it's Monday. And you know what happens on Monday?
What happens on Monday?
It's Best of the Rift time. Who made an impact? We're about to find out. Best of the Rift is where we highlight our top 5 players in each role.
Yeah, for me, the starting point being Ray. If you saw the series yesterday versus Rogue Warriors, you know why. He was exceptional in that one. 5 solo kills. Well done from him. Damage per minute off the charts. With damage taken per death, which means that he's taking a lot of damage but not dying as much.
That's what happens when you're on Vladimir, yeah.
That does. There we go. The Vladimir stat.
That was ridiculous.
Yeah, and then you move on to XX, which makes a lot of sense. The guy in every one of these series, I'm not surprised. He was my first guess when it was asked me who was going to be taking the jungle route.
Yep.
Because he has been on point, helping out us solo lanes, who are stacked to by the way, which is not a surprise that him and Knight both get that honor.
I think Knight as well is no surprise that he's the top lane, the mid lane candidate at the moment as well. You just look at the KDA, and he's been leading the charge. I think he's ahead by quite a lot at the moment.
Yeah, 13 KDA is huge, and a lot of it comes back to what was an exceptional performance throughout the week. He took down Yagao in an insane fashion. That was a real good one. His laning phase has been strong.
I think as well, someone like iBoy, we moved down the chart, of course, and iBoy's just had consistent performance, considering NEG look a bit revitalized.
Even in their loss versus RNG, he had an outstanding performance. So I think a big W to RNG and EDG for how they've been performing has been their outright carries, and I think iBoy's really stepped up.
We don't need to touch on missing there because we will talk about him a little bit later, considering WE and LGD is going to be our first matchup there. But before we go into that, since we are at the halfway point, you know, it's our teams to watch that we need to focus on a little bit here, and there are a couple that stand out.
For me, I want to kick on towards EDG and Victory 5 for the beginning point, because I think their top laners have just really been outstanding. Ray, we've had a question mark, was what is his role on the team? Is he coming in as a tank, like that gauntlet run that he had last year, going into Worlds, just playing the Ornn. All, you know that he could be the Ornn daddy and just like, I'll come down to the bottom lane.
This is how they got there. Yeah.
Exactly. The laning phase isn't what matters for me. It's more so how the team fights is. His team fights are still strong. So the team fights are really what has been getting it done, but the fact that he's able to do it on the Vladimir, on these massive carry options, has been what's done it. Boom! Suju didn't see that one coming.
Rogue Warrior's got this face burst as well. This is a bit rough for RW, but again, Ray on the carry.
And it's been the last 3 series where we really saw Ray shine, and now this is Victory 5. Victory 5, Jinwoo being able to play multiple ribbon games. He's been a true carry for the squad, and it's fun to see that because I think the solo laners, both Korn and Jinwoo, have been consistent in that route. They had a few losses in the beginning of the week, right? Week 1, week 2, they started out with 2 losses, and then they just really sprouted back up right into the playoff picture. So it's nice to be able to see them growing. That's why I have those 2 teams as my teams to watch. And then the last one, as we'll see coming up, has been WE.
Also, I just want to touch on this super quick because Jinwoo back to V5 has been an absolute monster. Now, do some quick maths because that is a 32 KDA in 3 games, 100% win rate on Riven.
Huge. And it's been off of what's really well-constructed compositions, too. It's not like, the Riven just goes. They've been utilizing it with having the Galio support or mid lane being able to back them up. And then they have multiple bruiser options. You saw in the Urgot in that replay. I think their drafts have been super strong, being able to protect the Riven pick. So when it comes into team fights, it's not the only option.
But WE is our 3rd team to watch there, and especially since WE are, you know, at a point which is almost similar to last year, Raz.
It's similar to last year, but the biggest difference for me has been the fact that they've remained the same throughout. The only changes coming through is in the jungle position.
Yeah.
So we're finally getting to see xiye and Mystic not leave the Rift. They are staying in the game, and I think that's their major mode of success. They are their major carries. Mystic and xiye are their best players, and so you want to be able to see them play 100%.
Even though you got these similar players, though, Raz, it's a different style of WE. It's a lot more bloody heavy. And I'm Australian, so I'm sorry if that comes across the wrong way, but there is some blood being shed in these games of WE.
Between both LGD and WE, first 15 minutes in the game, they are, for WE, they're number 1.
Yeah.
Which is insane to say. Back in the era of Condi, they were one of the slowest teams. But looking at LGD, and speaking of Condi, he's going to be going up against, he has Lies, Condi, Yuuki, Kramer, and RD. That's your LGD lineup.
Condi's going up against some of his old teammates as well. We'll come back to a bit of the ipso facto of how WE play out their games, but LGD, they're in their home arena this time around, and going up against WE, I like this because they're still playing post in the top lane. In the jungle, it's actually beishang after his good performance last week. xiye, Mystic, and Missing down in the bottom lane.
Yeah, you talk about beishang, the fact that he was able to perform on that Aatrox when they went up against OMG. There were a lot of older, former OMG and WE members that were actually restreaming that game, having discussions about it, because while these teams are currently not performing, you can see the rage right there, Wei Xiao, current coach of the team, as you can see him right there. They're restreaming the games and having a discussion about, like, legitimately what's going wrong with the teams, how could they improve, and for WE, there is real improvement. Yep. Not only are they shoring up their lineup and saying, we're not changing what has been a somewhat successful strategy. You can only grow yourself from here. They've been allowing beishang and Magic, their 2 rookie junglers, 2 younger players, to be able to now be comfortable in their lineup. It's the fact that we're now seeing them far more often is much more comfortable for me.
And it seems there's got a lot of work put in from Wei Xiao towards beishang, because beishang played one of the first games in that first series of the split, had a bit of a break. It was a lot about Magic. Yep. And he's come back in that last series and looks like he's revitalized and recharged. So it's good that, WE are putting the risk on again, and it's kind of paying off, especially in those first 15 minutes.
He's also had a mind of his own. I think that's what's more important for me, because for WE, the junglers that have been coming in post-Condi era, they've often been looking towards the mid lane.
Yep.
Trying to get xiye ahead, trying to move away from what is, trying to invade, trying to get their own advantages. And beishang in that one game, as you saw in the KDA, he had so much pressure in and of itself. He invaded quite often. He really challenged the enemy jungler.
Yep.
That's what I would love to see. That reminds me of Condi in that era. But now Condi's bringing that love to LGD. That's why I think both of these teams are, better off in that relationship, I guess, now that they've gone their separate ways. Because while WE has had that downward spiral from 2017 to 2018, now moving on to 2019, 2019, they're getting to a really comfortable position where they are back on the up and up. And I think that while it is a tough call to say, will they make it into the playoffs, I have them as my team to watch because I do think that they will make it into the playoffs. I think that they are getting stronger and really supporting one of their strongest members. Mystic is still a top 4 AD carry in this region. And if that's the case, then you should be able to really rally around that and find your success.
And remember, WE are actually finding success. I mean, they've had some surprising series, and it wouldn't be WE without some of those surprising wins. Now, into this year, 2019 is going to be a big one because 16 teams, those 2 fresh teams are riling up the ladder as well. But WE still look like, oh, Mystic missing, we're coming for you. We're going to play around you. It's 15 minutes. You want an 80 carry? We want a good one.
And you said that we'll talk about him, you know, later on, and now it's later on.
Oh, hello.
Missing, the support who got best of the Rift, has had some insane statistics, mostly because the laning phase for Mystic and Missing have been phenomenal. He's been a Thresh God, you know, replacing the old ones, the zeros. And if you're talking about the old Thresh God that was on that team as well, Ben's not in it anymore.
Yep.
He has come in and he's done a lot of good work for the team. So hats off to Missing coming in and being able to solidify his place.
Must be something about WE that everyone just wants to play Thresh with Mystic.
Thresh and Braum. It's like legitimately you're on the team, well, here's your initiation.
And Missing is probably going to deserve some kind of a ban at some point if he can get away with it again in this series. But remember, we still are on 9.2, so anything really goes here. And for WE, not being in their home arena, there's always a massive, massive crowd that comes out for WE. But here, we've still seen that same kind of support, and I've never seen a coach have this much support from a crowd. Wei Xiao has more signs for him than there are signs for Mystic. So
legendary AD carry, and on top of that, a popular streamer.
Yeah, well, Wei Xiao, let's apply that knowledge to WE here in this first game against LGD. An important one for Condi to define his legacy. And look how far ahead we already are.
Ooh, Akali first pick. That's when you know you're in that 9.2 hype.
Yep.
You look towards it and say, Akali for Yuuki. He's going to try and abuse it until you can't use it.
The first pick priority there for LGD. Now, just a passing note while we're waiting for this Urgot and Lucian to get locked in. It is 9.2, but due to the interaction from Yorick and Silas yesterday, Silas is banned across the LPL and LDL until further notice. So it cannot be played, but Yorick was the last ban from WE.
All right. Urgot and Lucian, not surprised by that. beishang is quite the Lucian player, and he knows he's going to be able to take it away from Condi.
So walking in the Lucian, that means immediately you go for LGD. Do you just give Condi something like the Olaf nice and early, or do you play it safe and wait for something more of an engaged tank?
I guess that's going to answer for you. The hover, I agree with it. I think that Olaf has been so flexible in the sense that right now the most popular build path being Redemption is strong.
Yeah.
But if you were able to get a real good advantage, then just go all in. Go for the Black Cleaver and Guardian Angel and just have at it. I really love the Olaf pick, especially with how aggressive you're seeing with the Akali. I really like Galio alongside Akali in the composition.
Okay.
It's quite unfortunate that they haven't locked it in first phase. You've seen the teams just yesterday. A lot of Galio priority because you can actually just flex it so heavily towards RD or Condi, or Yuuki in this matter. So even though we already see the Akali, that would add that more, the higher level of flexibility if Lies could pick up that Akali.
That is Lies champion. Like, that has been Lies champion in the past. Not exclusively, but definitely able to flex up into that top lane, as you said. WE, they just pull up the support, keeping it away from LGD. Now we'll see if some of those target bans come through, because I'm surprised we don't see something like an Alistar, or even that Braum that's just been banned by WE.
Yeah, I think the support picks are something to look towards. I'm more so looking towards the AD carries. The fact that they allowed the Lucian over towards LGD, and then on top of that, Mystic is saying I'm comfortable enough to pick an AD in second phase. That, I've never seen a team do that. Usually AD carry priority goes on first phase. But for the fact that you're going into WE, who has picked Vayne so much in the past, I would expect that to be a case with a Tahm Kench giving you that extra bit of safety.
Also surprised at the fact that LGD banning away this Ashe straight away from Mystic and then the Ezreal means the Kai'Sa still open and available, means WE have a couple options to play with.
Remember, namesake, Ezreal being banned away from Mystic, that's his best champion. Historically speaking.
Also,
that's true. That's been the joke going on. It's been hit on the head for so long. And now it's going to be a Mystic locking in the Varus.
Varus, Tahm, Kench. bit of safety in that bottom lane. LGD options available here, where we've seen the Vladimir pop off, even on Poster's side of the matchup.
Vladimir is an OG pick into the Urgot. It's fun to see. It's not going to be
Renekton.
locked in. That's a completely different one. It's nice to see that they're going for a more laning phase gank priority. So you'd have to expect Condi to be looking topside, knowing that get that early dive onto Urgot or just maybe an early gank. Renekton is such a great setup for you.
How do you set it up even further? Well, you flex the Fiddlesticks and eventually you just lock that one in. A very interesting support pick for RD, but this has been his comfort in the past.
It's been his go-to. Him and Mako just love the Fiddlesticks.
Oh, yeah.
WE, the moment they banned Braum, it's like, why are we even banning supports at this point? If we're not banning the Fiddlesticks, RD has gone towards 2 champions so far, and it's been the Morgana and the Fiddlesticks.
Yeah.
He's been dabbling with Soraka and solo queue, but I'm not going to be expecting it in this game.
No, especially not since at the end, WE, they lock in the Vladimir themselves. Now, where is this going? Because that Urgot can be flex mid.
It's very likely a xiye pick. Xiye has his set champion pool. He can go into others. He can go straight towards the meta. That's fair. But to his core, he plays Vladimir, Jace, and Kassadin. That's what those 3 champions he's known for. So for WE, watching the previous games, watching all of last week, and seeing how successful Vladimir was, being able to get to the late game portion of it, WE is saying, all right, xiye, you can lock it in for yourself.
How do you get to him? Well, you rely on Yuuki this game because he'll be taking the Akali right through to the mid with a Renekton topside. Now, there is an incredible Renekton win rate, just to drop this fat stat for you.
Give it to me.
10-3 in the top lane so far, and the LPL really the only region playing this out of any premier region in the world.
It's a lot of damage up there, and we've been seeing a lot of heavy ganking focused junglers as a response as well. So we're seeing a lot of a few Elise, I think in particular Tien.
Yeah.
Tien from FPX have been picking up Elise to be able to help amplify Renekton, because if you have a great amount of setup, doesn't matter how poor the matchup's going to be. If we're talking about like the Kennons and Jaces that you can go up against, you just flash or slice and dice, get your W across, and it's such an easy way to blow up the enemy top laner.
You feel very confident because Lies has taken the carry matchup more times than I can count. He's the only person to play Cannon into that top lane, as far as I'm concerned, and LGD. We just come back to the point that this is almost like a grudge matchup for Condi against his old team.
Let's take a look at him. He is so confident and focused on this because all of last year he came back, and I think the story for him coming back after what was difficult, hard to really take, family issues, he comes back and it was still a tough run. It wasn't an easy sailing for going back, being on LGD. Let's see if he can go in game 1. That certainly feels bad when you're in Hangzhou, but it still feels like a WE crowd.
It still definitely does. You saw a cheeky little invade there from LGD. That's probably why the fans were a bit silent. But WE, that's right, not even in their home crowd. LGD have some expectations to live up to, Raz. We know after the win against IG and taking a game against FPX, hopes were definitely high, but failed to live up to the hype. And now we're back where we started with LGD, wondering how far they can go.
I think a lot of that, the results, while there may not be turning out in favor of them in the last loss, and also like not being able to take the victory over FPX, what's remained true is the fact that their carries are a highlight.
Yep.
I love this matchup in particular because Kramer and Yuuki going up against xiye and Mystic, it almost seems like a complete mirror of each other. Unsuccessful teams, but super successful carries. And the fact that the junglers are really what really differentiates both of these teams. Condi has been a well-experienced jungler, and he's had some great games. He's defined what is, the shot calling and early game for this team. So I love the direction LGD has had in.
Condi might have to shift some of that direction towards beishang. He's been spotted by a ward. Condi still not confident to take it, even though Olaf at half health has that attack speed buff, but just let beishang get the scuttle rather in the top side of the map and move towards the bottom side clear.
Usually Lucians want to be scrapping early or looking for an early gank. You can already see going red buff into scuttle, then he can maybe look for a gank, but that ward will, dissuade that ever from happening, and it's just tough to get on top of Yuuki. he needs to be able to think very, rationally, because Olaf just blows through the jungle. And in fact, he's just going for a full clear. So it's always tough in a Lee Sin's shoes to be able to deal with full clear junglers, especially at the clear speed that Condi has.
It is a big sacrifice because you lose the double scuttle early, which is so much gold. And beishang, even though he's spotted out by yet another ward, with smart warding from LGD, he'll just go back and the clear will favor him. Condi,
even with the double scuttle, I still favor the Condi's clear.
Okay.
Because he's done full clear while Lee Sin's foregone Raptors and Krugs, which is your major, what will drive your experience in the jungle. So it just really depends how safe these scuttle crabs have, given your lanes. And I would say beishang should be comfortable, knowing that bottom lane and top side of the map will be fairly safe from a Condi gank. So once he goes back to base from this full clear, gets himself a boost, I don't really expect him to be able to get a successful gank in either lane.
Yeah, the bottom lane as well, just a note. It's very heavily pushed up, but very hard to gank Fiddle and Lucian in the bottom lane. Both have reasonably good escapes.
One thing I want to touch on is that Akali and Vladimir, we've seen this matchup mostly in the top side.
Yep.
We saw a great teleport ignite of Akali with fleet footwork, and it's just basically saying, I'm going to consistently harass you, shove you into tower, and then harass you under tower, because that change hasn't been made. Exactly. So you out-sustain the Vladimir because you have fleet footwork, your Q also heals, and once you get Gunblade, it's more of a problem. That being said, before we touch on that topic, Mystic and Missing gonna have a tough time here as the gank starts.
There's gonna be the escape. Fear onto Missing. This is the Tahm Kench they're focusing on. They're straight onto him. He can't devour himself. Missing gets the slow with the Exhauster as well. The turn around. Mystic does find the poke around to Condi at a quarter health. The gank unsuccessful there from the jungler of LGD.
Yeah, thumbs up from Missing and a tip of the hat from Condi. Great damage being put down on Missing, but already look at how much healing he's going to give him back. Targans is going to make it a little more easier for Missing while he's, chugged his potion. So
yep.
Not as successful as a gank that Condi wanted to happen.
Especially when Missing was at full health and RD hasn't been able to poke them out just yet. That's the prioritization of the Dark Wind. Condi just goes back to the top side jungle. Opportunity as Post is actually pushing into Lies. So there are still options here for the jungler of LGD.
Yeah, beishang actually just was able to clear out Raptors and Krugs while this was all happening. So the one point that I made where I was happier with Condi's run through the jungle was overtaken by WE. So good stuff coming in from beishang.
He was able to drop no vision actually. It was just Condi there looking for Scuttle. He might actually be able to drop the third. Condi has not picked up one just yet. So beishang does have a little bit of an experience bonus.
One thing that's going to be difficult for a Lee Sin who wants to be on the map early, after your first base, Condi is going to be consistently healthy throughout his pathing. It's going to be good that Lee Sin is able to catch this. Ooh, RD.
This is a good roam up. He's come back from base. Has himself the upgraded Spell Thieves.
Because my point here is that beishang's going to have some difficulty in looking for a gank. Bottom lane is difficult until they hit 6. Mid lane is just impossible. And then top lane is your only bet. But Lies has already gotten to a level where it's just impossible to really deal with him. So he can 2v1 at this point. Especially if he just gets on top of beishang. So beishang's incentivized to just really focus on the experience, get to level 6, and then try to go for a bot lane gank where he can get a kick flash or a ward hop kick.
And incentive moves to the mid lane, bottom lane still there and getting pushed in. But you're right, beishang at the moment going to go back to his own jungle, all the way to Gromp. Red buff's coming up. A reasonably quiet game from both our junglers, but favoring Condi for the time being.
He might look for a gank top lane. I'll say this will happen in about a minute from now, because remember, he left his Raptors and Krugs up for quite some time. So while he'll go to his red buff, he won't be able to clear that out. That leaves a hole when he's top side. So he would want to go for a Renekton gank. So look out for that, unless if he changes his plans.
But how does he get through? Because the red buff right now, some deep vision be getting planned by Condi. He's just going mid instead. That's a Hema playing out, trying to force Yuuki out of lane. Interesting ultimate. He doesn't have it available if Condi comes in, but I guess that's not going to be the case.
They're going to be fighting over the Raptors. Just comes back up. Ooh. Okay, this is going to be a good fight over the red buff.
Pathing from Condi to take him to the red buff first. He does know beishang is here, or at least has an idea. Yeah, it is warded. So beishang going to clear that out. I think his red buff's just going to be gone by the time he gets there.
Yeah, he knows by now, especially with the adjacent laners rotating to that side. The camps come up 2 minutes and 30, so I guess he still has the ability to go to his Krug, so that's not a big miss. But going topside when Renekton has pressure in the lane is going to be really difficult. So he's going to have some difficulty just moving towards the Scuttlecrab bot.
Yeah, and again, it's like in that top side, the vision there, double control ward. So you're right, he goes bot. Scuttlecrab is coming up. He goes for an invade himself, knowing that the red buff will be up, but spotted out by a ward. Vision from LGD again. It's just lining down the center of the map.
Good ward here from Fiddlesticks, just because the laning phase has been poor from both him and Kramer. The poke coming out from Mystic and Missing has been able to land on RD so consistently that he can't harass anymore. So it's giving them an opening to actually look for the turret platings really early on in the game. So it's much slower than any game that we've seen from both WE and LG in recent weeks.
Especially WE.
The stat point that we lined up for both of these teams, that they're one of our bloodiest teams at 15 minutes. So it's already been 8 minutes on the map, and both teams have been really quiet just because of how safe these lanes are.
It's kind of an issue, isn't it? Because for WE, it seems like they play off that momentum. How does beishang go after that 15-minute mark? Because in the previous series, WE seemed very quiet after that 15-minute mark from the jungle point of view, after every lane snowballed ahead.
Take a gander at the items here. So triple cutlass usually is a great way to take advantage of a mistake being made, especially since Yuuki's been able to hit 6. It's just harder going up against a Vladimir mid lane. Easier to push him in and to rotate, so there's an opportunity where Condi and Yuuki can look bottom lane, but not so much underneath the tower of xiye. Xiye should be fine just being able to heal up here and sit under tower. It just depends how much hurt he's getting.
He has got the Healer Plague. Yuuki maybe could have altered there, but was worried about the healing up of Vladimir. Talked about the trades and maybe threatening with that Cutlass, and Yuuki's doing exactly that.
Yeah, you could even throw in the Ignite if he wants to get the job done so the healing doesn't follow through. But RD is in ulting position.
Well, he now finally gets ult, but he's spotted out very quickly. They don't know Condi's down here, though, or maybe they do. They're just being cheeky.
They have to be suspecting it. It's been a strategy LGD's been utilizing whenever they have the Fiddlesticks.
beishang's down here as well, so if this comes in with an ultimate, he's going to be here very quickly. Doesn't have boots 1 just yet.
Much harder now for the gank to work out because the wave has reached the median. Condi's still going to look for it. Here we go.
But when does he get spotted? beishang hasn't been just yet. He's walking in. Predator getting procced here. beishang on the back end as well. Sonic Wave lands. RD with the ultimate there. They're targeting the AD carry, but he's devoured up underneath the turret. Missing has been ignited. They just want the kill. They cannot find the undertow through. Chains of Corruption land. Culling does not. In the way. Lies has come down here. Yuuki finishes it off. Good collapse by LGD. Woo! Triple kill at 10 minutes in the game. And Yuuki gets his just desserts.
You thought they were safe. It felt like that was the case. They had full vision towards Condi moving in towards him. They understood where RD was coming from, so RD just ultied right on top of their faces. Lies teleported. While it felt like, okay, well, he's going to waste his teleport, they didn't understand that Yuuki was coming in from a flank position, and RD was going to be able to just go straight for it with his ultimate proc. So really difficult for WE to deal with that unless if Vladimir came through. It was just a pure 5v3. Turned it eventually into a 5v4. It just took some time.
WE saw Yuuki coming down as well, but there was really nothing they could do, especially since the commitment from LGD was so quick.
Look how long it took for a teleport to come through because they didn't really realize that that was going to be a dive. Even with vision that Yuuki was coming, they didn't think the commitment would be coming through. So I would say the moment you see Yuuki coming, send the teleport through.
I think it's also maybe lack of communication in comparison to LGD. Condi is just pulling the trigger and says, let's go. And Lies teleported at the exact right moment there. But already, Yuuki's got 3 kills. So now there's a big issue in the mid lane because that is going to be a Hextech Gunblade as soon as he backs.
I've been talking about the fact that Yuuki could just leave the lane. Thankfully, he was getting a lot of harass in the lane itself, so xiye was still feeling like there was kill range there for Yuuki.
Yeah.
Yuuki still headed up towards the bottom side of the map, so even though it was fairly telegraphed, there's not much you can do when xiye is coming towards the bottom side late.
And he's going to have to pop the Heaven Plague Ignites there. Now Yuuki, can he go back in? No. It did time out, and beishang comes in to help just in time, but that's not even with the Blade yet.
Yeah. The perfect execution for Yuuki actually didn't come up. It was 10 seconds off of like just before it came off of cooldown. You were that close before he was going for the execution. Now, he's still staying in lane. I wonder if he's going to cancel his back because xiye's been sitting around just at half HP, so.
He's happy to sustain it up, but the next all-in will be a kill. Yuuki's picked up Sork shoes as well. And Condi, with this mid lane pressure, is just able to push into the red buff, gets the information down again.
At this point, you just need to play through mid. You saw how successful that bottom lane gank was, and bot lane tower is still up. 2 minutes until the turret platings fall off. They can get the full value. If you see you shoving 2 waves, second wave should be a cannon minion wave, and then you just rotate with Condi towards the bottom side tower. That would be the most successful thing. I think it might not be easy on this wave because bottom lane is backing, but it would be a great way to be able to open up the map, take down what was supposed to be the strongest side of the map for Team WE.
She is trying to push, so that can't be a possibility. Yuuki will be spotted by Vision as soon as he starts walking towards that bottom lane, but maybe a roaming RD can help out with that. Condi heading towards it as well. 4 members towards that bottom quadrant. And a wave pushing in for WE, which might not be the best thing if Yuki's able to move down.
There are no wards behind him, and on top of that, Lies doesn't have his teleport, so teleport plays are not open. It's more so the worry that Yuuki could just end up walking there. They have a good ward to see if he goes through his own red side jungle. It's just that at the moment you can already see LGD starting to clear those wards out.
1 ward behind him, again, doesn't exist. Able to clear out 1 of them in the river, I believe, and Yuki's still sitting there in front of the red buff.
That's where you need to be. Don't sit in mid lane if you get the shove off. Sit and push and roam. Push and roam. Even if it's just sitting in that bush for an extended period of time, you want the enemy mid laner. They don't have vision of you. They shouldn't be able to hit you with
you
a
wanted
poke.
the face check as well, yeah.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so at this point for Yuuki, he's in prime position if a play were to start for bottom lane to get there much faster. And also have that little bit of paranoia for xiye, if he should look to hard push the lane or end up rotating early in anticipation.
Remember, because of this pressure, and that is a very good ward by WE, by the way, that spots out the gank before it comes through, so they know Condi's down here. They can push towards these buffs, they can disrupt beishang a little bit more, but because of the pressure, he's had to take the blue and move to the bottom lane.
But this could be a replay of the last one. Even though you can telegraph it, can you stop it? Take a look at Akali. This was the X factor. Xiye needs to match her. But that's been a difficult point because he's been pushed in quite consistently.
He's just walking down to the bottom lane. The push eventually resets itself. She is staying in there. RD flashes forward. The fear there with the Crowstorm. 4 members in. Condi just deletes the support. Missing us the flash, or Mystic rather. Yuuki in once again. The Shroud. It's so annoying. They can't deal with him under turret. Yuuki just walk away. Does use the perfect execution to escape.
Yeah, ulti's right back out there. And they can just utilize Rift Herald to take this tower down. Doesn't matter if you can see it coming.
Well, they actually found Yuuki. Where's the Dragon's Rage? There it is, a dabbing penguin out. And beishang will lose the turret for it, but better than nothing.
Perfectly timed there to get the kill on a Yuuki. It was really wonderfully done, but they still lose out just a little bit from the bottom lane. I just love the fact that xiye was able to respond as well with the mid lane turret.
It's very good decision making from xiye, knowing that he can't get down there in time. Rather hit that level 11, rather get the solo plating from the mid lane. Or rather, it was already gone, but get the solo turret gold. And WE right back to where they started, but we'll watch how Yuuki got caught again.
Just as he gets out of vision, but they know his movement speed. That's all you need. Excellently done between both beishang and Mystic to get the execution.
Kill went on to Lucian as well. beishang needs a bit of priority towards his goal at the moment, especially since Condi got some. And it'll be the Warriors already picked up there, so first items across the board. A different team fight now for WE if it comes across, especially with the 1 item of Vladimir and Varus.
The lane's being opened up. I would love to see Mystic and Missing to go straight through mid lane. It allows your jungle and support to really start rotating and pushing in. With mid lane turret down, you have access to both sides of the jungle. That's why the core of the map, mid lane turret, is so important. So Yuuki actually losing out on that through a bottom lane fight is very detrimental. Now LGD will start to feel the pain.
LGD trying to finish up that mid lane turret, in fact, so trying to mitigate some of the losses, putting xiye into the top lane, putting posts into the bottom lane.
Even if Mystic gets pushed back, the larger concern is xiye on side lane alongside post. So you have to be able to break that up. Vladimir is left alone. At the very least, LGD can pick this up.
So free dragon across. That's a Cloud Drake. They lost a mountain earlier in the game. xiye just going to push down another turret. Now this is going to go unanswered as well because Lies will come back up, but beishang's here to shadow the Vladimir. So at least getting some damage down and pushing the wave in, denying creeps.
Ooh, maybe they can see him. Okay, they find him, but they can't touch him. At this
Fly's
point,
level 12, yeah.
At least you have an idea of where he is on the map. But there are multiple benefits of having Vladimir on the sideline. Not only does he get the solo experience, he gets the full minion wave. That's when the ticking time clock starts going. Going up against the Vladimir, we've seen a lot of highlight plays from amalgamation of top laners of what a Vladimir can do in late game. But you need to give him and prioritize these solo lanes. But it seems like LGD doesn't want to do that.
They know exactly how to stop the Vladimir. xiye run, level 12 will be fine because no one can really get to him in time.
Yeah, don't worry. It's just Yuuki. Yeah, no one else was coming.
Yuuki's might be enough for him at this point anyway. There's a blasting wand on top of all that AP damage already coming out from the Akali. Perfect execution back up and available. They'll leave Akali top.
Just love the imagery of 4 people, like a full attack squad, coming up topside, and he has no idea. The only vision he has is the Akali taking up the wave.
He's like, alright, I'm not coming. And Condi's looking for the remnants of him. We'll just poke his way into this tri-brush. This actually might be LGD breaking over the top lane turret. It is like paper.
Yeah, Vladimir shouldn't touch that. He has a pretty good idea that the Olaf is topside too.
But good trade.
Lucian hasn't been on the map for a bit just because he's been farming up there. I wonder how close he is for a, not Black Cleaver, but for the components, just to get another Ruby Crystal. So for him, getting back onto the map and being able to help mid lane is super important. Once he's able to do that, you have a strong side. And it relieves some pressure for xiye. Even if xiye dies topside to a 2v1, then you can actually respond something. You can look for a mid lane inner turret. You can try and dig in deep because red buff's coming up. You just need your jungler out there so Vladimir doesn't, poke his head out and dies for nothing. It's fine for him to die, but you don't want him being attacked when there's no pressure on the map.
Well, you can see that xiye went to the top side of the map because he knew that where Lives was going to go, so he didn't see any kill threat there from the Renekton, more so from Yuuki, unable to sustain through that burst. But further to your point, especially beishang is going to be key in this. Has the Kindle Gem, almost the Phage. You can see Gold, he is actually ahead of Condi.
He's doing quite well for himself since the early game. The double Scuttle Crab was one thing, but being able to consistently take his own, topside, red side jungle, I was surprised about that. I expected Condi to be actually going into topside and just maybe even vertically jungling a little bit more so he can pick up his own enemy Krugs. His bottom lane and Kramer and RD were fairly safe. That being said, they're looking for a mid lane turret.
He had a lot of priority around Kramer and RD. Speaking of the devil, moves with the rest of the team to the mid lane. That's 5 members on the mid lane turret. And xiye has just left them topside to push it out. LGD are going to further form this issue.
You got to do something about this.
It's very interesting because WE don't look like they're going to commit. xiye doesn't have teleport, of course.
RD's in position for an ultimate, but he doesn't have too much HP on his head. The only thing that makes this a questionable rotation from Vladimir is being a mid lane Vladimir, you'd expect a teleport, but he understood the matchup was going to be difficult, so he went for an ignite. An ignite Vladimir in side lane is an exception. You're accepting the fact that you will not be a part of the fight.
Yeah.
That you will not have a Vladimir, your main source of damage later on in the game.
Just waiting to get to that maybe 3-4 item point. We're getting closer. That's a Morellonomicon picked up at 20 minutes in the game, so the resources going over to xiye, not for naught. Same could be said about Yuuki as well. He has the Oblivion Orb. And someone just doesn't want to see the scores anymore.
Next point that we would, next item that I'd love to see him pick up is Zhonya's. Now, his item slots, it's so full that he can't even fit a stopwatch in there. You want to at least hold on to the stopwatch for a little bit, but he's likely just going to be having the full commitment, as you can see, unless if he changes something up in there. He might never buy a control ward again after those 2.
I mean, sell the Dark Seal. Why not? Who cares? Got no stacks on it. Where's your pots? They don't exist. Good to see control wards coming out of mid laners. Ever since your little spiel on Doomby, I've been very observant of what our mid laners are buying. And Yuuki is going to get a hard pass from me, but 3-1. I think the 2 item Akali speaks enough volume at the moment. 2 items on pretty much everyone speaks a good deal of volume. That's why we're hovering around the Baron at the moment, looking for vision priority, which LGD currently have.
Most important thing about having your mid laner getting a control ward is the fact that earlier on in the game, your support is usually disconnected to your jungler. The only time you end up seeing them interact is either through the lane ganks that we've been talking about, the ganks, the obvious one, or if your AD carry is backing, or if his name is Ezreal and you can just leave the lane regardless. having your mid lane pick up that control ward gives you river, if you have river priority, gives you the ability to walk in with ease. And I think that for some teams, unless if they have that raw 2v2 that can brute force through the river, you end up seeing a lot of solo deaths from junglers that don't have that cooperation of their mid lane.
Yeah, doesn't seem to have been the case this game, but you can see before the playing around vision, playing around those control wards as they were waiting for a pick, but LGD have waited long enough. They move back towards that dragon. Double cloud here.
Double cloud dragon for an Olaf team. That's actually really good.
Yeah.
Especially since their main priority, if you look at how their composition is supposed to play, is through just running you down. Your only real CC option is either the W from Lies or the ulti and just the fear that Fiddlesticks gives you.
Yeah.
So movement speed does so much for LGD's comp.
I mean, while we're talking about it, Hextech Gunblade, you know, that's the limit there.
That's true.
And WE, not going to do it. Good. Many a times we've seen this play out now. LGD know they're around the Baron, but another scuttle goes over to beishang, and I think that's number 6, 5 or 6 this game.
So the difficulty of LGD's composition and playing around their comp's goal of looking to team fight is that they really rely on teams coming to them. For WE, they need to go to LGD if they can get the Fiddlesticks Crow Storm, or in particular, like, get Condi's ultimate really effective without being kited back. The best way to do that is really focusing on objectives, which is why LGD's been moving towards the Dragons 4 more consistently. Rather than going for inner towers, they've been picking up the double cloud. Next one's going to be a triple, so that's just insane.
Yep.
That's just ridiculous. Perhaps they forego that, though, because 23 minutes means that they go towards the Baron Nashor. And what better way to bait in the enemy team into your comp, into a team fight, is through Baron.
And also the objective of triple cloud. We know that W will be like, we can't do this. We can't give this over. Might not be an Infernal, but it's still important, as you said. So WE have a lot of time to think about that before they get there. And at the moment, they're just trying to poke their heads in towards this Baron. LGD playing the Death Brush. This is their 3rd attempt at it.
And you saw where Yuuki had been pathing. Straight through the red side jungle, that's where you want him. You want him to be able to come in a flank position if the focus is going to be on that Baron Nashor. You know WE is going to be flooding through either mid lane for priority, and they're going to be walking through Baron Pit from the right. So if you can get him in a flank position, and you can immediately challenge Mystic's positioning, he's not going to be pumping out damage.
Yep.
The only person you're going to be fearing for is xiye, because Vladimir still has that ability to dive into the backline through his pool. So that really eliminates the damage that WE has. Here we go.
Let's see it in action. Yeah, level 15. Woo! What? RD doesn't even move. WE find a fight. It's Yuuki in the corner as well. Missing to save his. No, he doesn't. Condi actually takes him down. Suddenly out of nowhere. Kramer, what are you doing here?
Gets out there at the right time, but that was a shock and awe moment. beishang ends up falling there, but the way they were able to blow out Fiddlesticks. Remember, Fiddlesticks is a champion simply because Aftershock gives you those resistances. But if you're not able to apply it, you can't get the fear immediately, you're a paper champion. So he's close towards his Zonias. He's got at least a stopwatch, but he wants to be able to use it. The ward on top of his head's definitely got him fretting.
beishang just kicked him back into whatever Oblivion looks like, and we'll get to see him die again.
What even got the kill on him? Because there was a whole lot of things flying at his face right there.
Oh, the Sonic Wave. He didn't even kick him.
That was a lot of damage from Vladimir on top of that one. So you have to be able to run, but at the same time, still being to respond back with a kill onto beishang really stops this one from spiraling towards WE. That would have been them then taking control of Baron Pit with a vision. I don't think they would have gone for it, but I think that they could have played a poke game, push out both adjacent lanes, top and mid. They're still currently doing that, but not being able to get control of the Baron Pit. You already saw the Observer turning off the lights. They see nothing.
Yep, it's back to square one for WE. That control won't last long, but LGD waiting for the pick off to beishang. It takes a very coordinated WE to get that pick again around the vision. And it was a loophole from what RD could clear in time. Can't find Condi either. So LGD at the moment, still playing around that vision. It's a very comfortable game, but really for who at the moment? WE has the gold lead. WE has xiye. They're scaling.
Right now, LGD is in the wrong position. Perhaps bringing WE towards the pit for how much they've been pushing out this mid, but WE can make the big play of just going for the mid lane tower. And they have missing, so they can reposition if Yuuki comes out of flank alongside Condi. Just how comfortable they're willing to play that game. Xiye hasn't reached his major item spike just yet, which is why they want to slow play this a little bit more.
WE just sticking near him as well. He's level 16 now on the Vladimir. And you look at that health already, 27 minutes in, 7 kills. WE pacing their way back after pushing up the wave. And it'll just be up to clearing vision, playing the game of chicken.
Wonder how long they're going to be playing this ARAM game. You can see the like the side lanes. Right now, top lane's been pushing in favor of LGD straight towards WE.
It's like when you play bots. You play bots and you leave the bottom and top wave and you just go mid. And you look at them naturally push out. This is what you'd see.
It's going to take 30 seconds before they're really pressed to do something about those waves.
He goes down and deals with it. Kramer and RD maybe. Because that Dragon's there as well. But as soon as LGD take their eyes off this mid lane, WE might just push in towards that inner turret.
That's the benefit of being on red side for that instance, because being able to take care of bot side puts you the furthest away from that Baron buff. And WE can really just get the shove here. And then they could prioritize towards Baron, but they didn't want to leave the Cloud Dragon out there.
Yeah, so they just jump on it. They clear every brush with their poke. They jump again. WE getting forced off this time. They still don't want to take the fight. Beishang back into the
RD
dragon.
is channeling.
Condi comes in. RD finds the route onto the man. Again, it's Beishang deleted out. Watch for Yuuki. Just dealing the damage.
Woo!
Comes in with a perfect execution. And LGD collapsed so nicely here. Xie's not in his item spikes just yet, but Kramer is. Forces the flash out of post, and there's no further chase. Lies. Maybe he will actually go around through the Gromp, look for that two-man slice and dice, but again, 4 for 2.
Even with the Lee Sin kick onto RD, you saw how effective that AoE was. The rest of the team could just pile up in there. I was a little bit worried because being able to pull out Dragon was the smart play. RD had to expend his own flash to get the job done, but the moment he does, Mystic is taking full damage. You already see beishang immediately taken out of the equation. This is such a tough team to kite away from.
At least Post could survive at the end, but look, that's taking a positive look at it. WE just couldn't get there to their item spikes in time. Xiye now has the Rabadon's death cap, but a little bit late. Getting forced out in a choke there with Yuuki hitting 5-man Qs is pretty rough at this point.
That's the dangers of playing towards a team fight right now. WE, I mentioned the fact that they're grouping so much. It has to be as a fear that, you know, they must be afraid of LGD going for Baron, but then they tried to group up for Dragon. At this point, you either give Dragon away or you try and dissuade it as much. Look for a trade, like 2017 WE, where you send the Vladimir topside, or either send him to the bottom lane and you just go for a 1-3-1. Try and push out and elongate this game. What they did there was try and speed it up. Taking Cloud Dragon, forced to fight. Moving towards Baron, you do not want a Baron fight to happen, so you just need to leave it on the map as long as possible.
And contesting for vision just makes them even more nervous, and WE not willing to send Xiye away again, so that 1-3-1 just doesn't exist at the moment. Post, even with teleport, is going to come mid.
He's got his Rabadon's death cap since that last fight, so I think it's a little bit better for him to come into these team fights.
There's also a Gargoyle Stoneblade onto Post, so 3 items on the Urgot. Beishang just takes a Hextech Gunblade. I'm not even sure what that was. That's just auto attack from Yuuki as well. And level 15 Akali, he's just mid lane too. LGD can play from the sides of these brushes.
Good clear on that ward that Condi was sitting on for some time. WE has great control of the flank position. It hasn't been working out well. Every single time WE has seen what LGD has been doing, it hasn't been effective.
Oh. Do they see this? So RD actually tagged by the Sonic Wave. Beishang not willing to commit.
Condi's on top.
Condi, where did you come from? Nailing all down 5. That's what Lies wants to do here. Yuuki's in once again, gets kicked away. Hemoplague is pretty big in this one, but Yuuki in the Smoking Shroud, very annoying. Perfect execution while Mystic cleans up Condi. Look at the front to back. That's just been interrupted by LGD. Yuuki is a pain in the bottom, and LGD, their mid laner, survives while Kramer sends out an Ardent Blaze into missing. RD will continue the chase. Kramer, you remember him on the FLICKR Freaks. You remember what he was like. He's hungry for blood, and he's showing it here on LGD.
This is an even fight but Kramer wants to look for more. Missing is so low, and Lies got the flank position.
Here he comes, spotted out by the poor award. Missing can only slow him. Can he slow the death down? LGD lose their top laner out of the fight because he gets bursted down. xiye with one, almost heals back up. The ignite, will it kill him? No, because the Hema play is so darn good, rather the Crimson Rush for WE.
They turn it on Yuuki too. That was so well played from xiye on the back. I think both xiye and Pose will get their due praise because the flank option was really nice, but right from the beginning, you can see them coming in from all angles. I would have to say, look straight towards the Vladimir. He picked up his rabbit on his death cap and targeted RD, Renekton. Condi was almost dead because of it. So you can start to see how poorly an Olaf can start to scale, especially with the Redemption pickup. Because once he has Redemption, that's great. Only works well for the rest of the team. Not well for his own HP. Doesn't have the damage too to be able to threaten the back line.
Becomes very irrelevant, where xiye has become so relevant in this game. xiye actually flashed away from the perfect execution while Baron's getting done. Lies has to deal with him now, but the Baron's already gone down to WE, while xiye is onto Condi. Regret. Write it out in the death note, because xiye is ready to take your life.
You can visibly see the team fights turn in favor of WE because of this Vladimir. 3-1 and 4. We saw what happened with Ray's Vladimir last series. It was him getting pummeled in the laning phase, much like this one, but then him just outscaling. Yuuki had done so well early on in this game, but he's finding it so hard to be able to find a strong team fight. This was a flank coming in from Lies. Pose just backs him away, and they're like, okay, do we commit with this fight? Yuuki said yes. I did not think that was going to be enough damage to take down RD, but it was.
And Pose sends down a bit of a warm welcome present for Yuuki, and he takes it with open arms, unfortunately. WE now in the driver's seat with that Baron buff. This is an Ocean Drake, and you know what Vladimir likes? More sustain. Let's give him more sustain.
A few members here are willing to pick this one up, but they're just going to back away too.
All right, xiye, enjoy your little welcome present as well. That's 4-item Vladimir now. Zhonya's Hourglass, which makes him even more annoying in the team fight. Yuuki starting to become less relevant here, but only if he can't get towards that back line.
And the back line's getting stronger. Straight due from the Maw Malmortius. Because if you're talking about who is Yuuki's target going to be, you got two options between beishang and Mystic. And Mystic picking up Maw means he lasts a little bit longer. So if you're now looking towards the AD carry and saying this is tough, then you're looking at how do you actually play this team fight out so you can have more damage, where Condi can last longer alongside Lies. At this point, LGD have simply gotten outscaled, and the goal leads in favor of Team WE.
Super hard to get near Mystic as well with that Chains of Corruption. Yuuki, as soon as he pops out of the Shroud, he's going to be targeted immediately by Mystic himself. So it's a bit of quid pro quo there from the AD to mid matchup. Now the turret goes down with the help of this Baron buff, and WE 6k gold ahead. As you mentioned, outscaling here, and WE know it so well. xiye is happy to front a couple of turret shots, happy to take a 1v3.
Yeah, just trying to use the Proto Belt forward, maybe even get a cheeky Q onto Yuuki. It's been punishing, and they're going to be able to easily get this tower.
Sticks attacking like an absolute trooper. Next is the inhibitor. The LGD will not manage to defend this one away. WE don't need to overstay their welcome either.
Mid lane inhibitor is a possibility here for Team WE with how close that wave is. In fact, you can see Lucian start to shepherd it in. They don't have to worry about the top lane wave because it is fine for LGD. They just need to stop the buck here.
Like, I mean, can you? Post meat grinder of a tank, or tank of a meat grinder. Either way, WE continue to push in. Kramer is finding himself weaker and weaker.
You have to take a look at RD. The only thing stopping this team fight from going through is the vision they had on the Fiddlesticks.
Which is absolutely none at this point. LGD pushing it even further. WE moving into that side of the jungle. Now, they will spot beishang. RD's like, is it me? Is it my turn? Not yet.
He's really fishing for it. I mean, there's not much for a Fiddlesticks to do if he can't look for that engage. If he can't look for the flank. And
you press E.
It's not very effective.
Where's the damage? Well, RD, this has been one of his tried and tested picks in the LPL so far. He's had a moderate amount of success with it.
He is simply the most successful Fiddlesticks in the LPL.
Yeah.
Every other Fiddlesticks has fallen flat.
It's still a moderate amount of success, and you consider, what about everyone else? Well, let's not talk about Lumal's game of Fiddlesticks.
Because I think the coordination with the Fiddlesticks was strong. I mean, they did well into calling in when bottom lane was going to shove in early on in this game. and how to utilize it. They even had the full team, either the teleport from Lies or the roaming from Yuuki, to coincide with that. We haven't seen any other team come in with this. That's why most of the time we're not a fan of the Fiddlesticks.
Yes.
You ask Clement, he's just saying no.
Even
if I'm talking about this on the stream, he's probably just typing no. But it is a strong pick if you can play in unison with its strength. LGD is a team that can play very well with it. But when you're losing just through not being able to pick the right fights after the bot lane team fight around the dragon, and not being able to push the button, knowing that xiye was picking up side lane farm without the teleport, I think that will be something they'll look back on.
Yeah. Even
if they decide not to ban Vladimir because they recognize it was more so pushing the tempo with their mid-game composition, that's going to be a tough call as they go into game 2.
Even after WE's indecisiveness in the mid-game. And LGD finding themselves still at the wrong end as the inhibitor will drop for the 3rd time around. This is triple inhibitor down. Going to be very hard for LGD to defend with their current damage.
They have to deal with the bottom lane. So
they're Chains of Corruption, everything's gone. We haven't seen a Fear Beyond Death this game, but finally we do. Condi's next up as well. Ragnarok dropped on down, the flash away from Lines. Renekton, its win rate drops ever so slightly here as WE start diving the fountain. Suddenly, it's all ready to go. Kramer playing with the fountain as well.
Oh.
He gets on in, trying to bring the game back into a successful moment, but flips back around. The Fiddlesticks drops as well. WE clean house with LGD. IG win or not for WE, it still looks pretty good. And I tell you what, after game number 1, a couple of thoughts, a couple of comments from both teams.
Waving the white flag, beishang. That was a strong mid-game coming into that late game portion where the team fights were working in their favor. The LGD will go into the back and really start to ask the question of, like, how do we deal with the Vladimir? I think a lot of teams in week 5 have started to ask that question. And simply put, if you have a great mid-game composition, Renekton, Olaf, even throw in the Akali and Fiddlesticks, where these team fights visibly were working out for them. And the Cloud Dragons coming through has to be the biggest feels bad match. Because while it helps your composition, it only boosts the mid-game. So they would have much rather have that late game option of a triple Infernal, even a Mountain Dragon, so they can not fear how much damage, speed time of their Baron buff take. But they got the Cloud Dragon. They should have averted their attention towards the Baron. I mentioned it. You can actually forego the 3rd Cloud Dragon, move towards the Baron, and just say, bait the team towards him. It was WE that was saying, okay, we'll just go mid, repeatedly. That's when most teams, better teams in the LPL, would just start up on the Baron. You have enough tanky members on your team where you can start up Baron, have Yuuki on flank position, or Urgot, however you want to play it out, so you can then force a fight. LGD, we're just uncomfortable with trying to do that.
Always feels indecisive as well. It's so much clearing of vision, so much threatening there as well, but it's like an empty threat. It's an empty fist, empty ball, whatever you call it. You
gotta be able to take the punch. You have to be able to throw it.
Yeah.
I think that was the biggest adaptation that the players from Suning of 2018, Hacker and I'd say Hacker and even Knight. Hacker and Knight were members that were able to have such great early game pressure.
All bark and no bite.
All bark and no bite. And I think that's something that is hard to teach in between games. So I wonder what their band-aid's going to be.
I'm pretty curious as well, because for WE and LGD, this is a big one to start pushing themselves up the rankings. We'll find out. Game 2 coming up right after this.